Hello and welcome to Vikings Rant. It has been so long since we've been together, and I am so sorry for that long pause. And many of you may think, oh, they were just depressed and they gave up. Well, partly, yes. But also, we did have a lot going on the past month, and we here at Vikings Rant, Dirk and I, both hope that that never happens again. But regardless, Dirk, we failed our fans, and we have never talked about the game that I'm sure they are all still burning a little bit in their heart from.
Yes, the Eagles, let's just put it bluntly, absolutely wrecked us. They destroyed us. Nick Foles turned into a throwing football god. Our defensive secondary looked like the Green Bay Packers secondary out there.
But Case Keenum looked like he should, so I guess at least one thing.
And Case Keenum reverted to the normal that we all thought he was going to be around the time he took over the starting position week 2. I'm over it, kind of, not really, still hate the Eagles, but good news is this, from this free agency period, we may just be getting closer to beating them next year.
And to put it lightly, I never liked the Eagles, but now I absolutely hate them. And the fact that they won a Super Bowl before us really kind of kills me, but...
Yeah, why do they get to win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback?
I mean, it's just ridiculous, and after the season we were having, to fall the way we did was very sad. And there's many reasons when you look back at the game why we lost. I mean, one, the players were not playing as hard. We started out good. We really, really did. And another reason was we didn't score any points after the first drive.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. We also turned it over about 4 different times. We also just allowed a bunch of 50-yard passes to Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey and whoever wore an Eagles jersey basically that day. It was really ticking me off. I had a long drive back to Des Moines, where I was staying over January, to think about it. And yeah. I couldn't get over it. I couldn't get over it for a few weeks. We don't think Isaac has gotten over it because Isaac has told us that he will not be joining a podcast until after the draft.
And so Dirk and I will be recording these by ourselves without our perky friend. And, looking back at the game, crushing, obviously. And there's so many things you can look into as to why we lost, and I've forgotten where I'm going with this, Dirk.
Yeah, I think what Nathan and I are trying to say, we're finally talking about this now in part because if we had talked about this the week after it happened, it would have just been us yelling the entire time, and you wouldn't have enjoyed that.
And it's hard to figure out exactly what happened with Nick Foles. Now, I've always said, okay, not on this podcast, but before this year, that I didn't think Nick Foles was a bad quarterback. I mean, you don't go and have the year he did with Philadelphia and just be an awful quarterback. And so when everyone was telling me that I should be counting them out, I was hesitant at first, but then I was like, you know what? It's the Vikings. I'm going to count them out. Big mistake. And I have to make a formal apology to everyone out there who trusted my opinion that the Philadelphia Eagles were terrible. Clearly I was wrong, but honestly, I still hold that opinion going into next year. I don't think they're going to be that good.
I think they'll be good again. I think they'll be about a 12-4 football team right now. I have to see the schedule officially. But I think they'll be back, and they'll
Mark my words, they will not make the playoffs.
That is also the bold prediction that we have for this podcast today, since obviously no football is being played right now. The other bold prediction I will make is UMBC will beat Virginia in the NCAA tournament.
Oh yeah, for those of you listening out there, Dirk and I are recording this on Saturday around noon, and so we are now a day out from when Virginia, the first number 1 seed to fall in the NCAA tournament, and so that's kind of something incredible to be thinking about. I mean, history has been made. Maybe this is a big year for history. I mean, obviously the Super Bowl will be played in 2019 next year, but looking forward, maybe that will happen.
True, Nathan, and we are here today to talk about the first steps we took towards history, signing a guy who also played in a city that is on the Maryland side of the Potomac River, but by Virginia. Kirk Cousins is a Minnesota Viking, everyone, for 3 years and a full $84 million guaranteed.
Honestly, one of the most incredible deals I think our franchise has ever made. Did we pay a lot of money for Kirk Cousins? Without a doubt, yes. But you pay your franchise quarterback a lot of money. And I personally believe that Kirk Cousins could be our franchise quarterback, certainly more than any of the guys we had on our roster last year.
I mean, did we overpay a little bit for Kirk Cousins? Yes. But Kirk Cousins is a 4,000-yard passer and has thrown over 25 touchdowns for the past 3 seasons. His interception numbers have been about 10 to 12. I would like to see those dip down a bit.
And I think they will, Dirk. I think they will. If Case Keenum can go a season throwing only 5 interceptions, I think Kirk Cousins can.
True. But because think about Cousins. He's made 1 Pro Bowl in his career. He could have made a couple more, but of course the bounty of NFC quarterbacks has been tremendous over the past decade. Also, I think with Kirk Cousins, I think you see a wide receiving core in Minnesota similar to the one he did best with in Washington, which was Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, Jordan Reed. I see that in Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, and Kyle Rudolph, except for
Laquan Treadwell, you forget.
Yeah, the difference, Laquan Treadwell, maybe. He's now the number 3 wide receivers. We know we cut Jarius Wright. This is a big year. If Laquan can't do it this year, Laquan should just be released and never get signed by a team again.
Yeah, if Kirk Cousins cannot bring out the best in Laquan Treadwell, he's hopeless. We should try to trade him. If we can't trade him, we should cut him midseason.
Also think we should try to re-sign Michael Floyd to a 1-year deal. I think
that would be very solid, especially with the Jarius Wright. And it looks like they're winding down in free agency. Obviously, another big signing. We'll talk more about him later, but just another big signing we got to get off our chest. Sheldon Richardson, I mean, our defensive line, with all due respect to the other defensive line, is clearly the best in the NFL now.
Yeah, clearly, but we'll talk about that more later here. So getting back to Cousins, I think Cousins brings better than Case Keenum. I think Cousins is better with the ball. His interceptions are not wild throws. His interceptions, in my opinion, are more whatchamacallit. He's trying to get the ball to the receiver. He's not trying to throw it up and make some miracle play like Case Keenum did, and it cost him a couple times, including in the NFC title game where he threw a lob pick to Marcus Williams that was oof.
Which will be Nathan's, I forget what I called my segment. But
bad play of the week.
Bad play of the year. I don't know. I'm just going to go off about Case Keenum.
I think the bad play of the year was every play we made except for the touchdown play in the Philly game. But you know what?
I mean, that Philly game, all right, we'll go back to it just for a second. That first touchdown was so hopeful. I was like, man, I was so right. I'm going to look like a genius on the internet. We're just wrecking Philadelphia. And then they just go and crap the bed. I mean, what happened? It's like everyone just gave up. Seriously. It's like they all just gave up. I can't believe I'm dredging up all these memories.
Yeah,
I'm mad.
I've tried the Star Trek memory wipe or whatever the memory wipe thing is.
It's not working. I'm just getting even more angry. I should not have talked about this.
I'm trying to.
Oh my gosh. I'm so mad.
But
what were they thinking?
We weren't thinking. We didn't get off the bus.
What happened?
I don't know. They just stopped trying. Harrison Smith just got beat every single play.
It wasn't Case Keenum's fault, Dirk. I mean, granted, he threw a pick six and fumbled the ball, but it wasn't his fault. I mean, granted, he threw 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, but it wasn't his fault.
Let me finish talking. Also, let's hook that in there. Why Kirk Cousins is better than Case Keenum. Multiple different parts. Kirk Cousins has also shown more consistency.
But Dirk, Kirk Cousins has never won a playoff game.
Well, hi, Nate Burleson. I didn't realize you were here. Anyway, let's just talk about that for a second.
Case Keenum has also not won a playoff game. He has lost a playoff game and thrown a miracle throw that got a touchdown. Was that an experience that I would never give back for anything? Yes, it was amazing, and it was one of the happiest moments of my life. But he lost that game. Case Keenum lost that game for the Minnesota Vikings. That, without a doubt. He basically threw a pick six, in the Saints game. I mean, they stopped him. They stopped him, but it turned into a touchdown. It was basically a pick six. I'll give him credit for throwing that pick six and just screwing over that game. I mean, seriously, how many points did they score after halftime except for the miracle touchdown? Like 3? 3 points after halftime? Are you kidding me? Kirk Cousins will not let that happen. Neither will John DeFilippo. By the way, thank God Pat Schumer is gone. That would not have been well if he was back again. I just don't think he could have done it.
I don't think that would have worked. I think Case is better off leaving. I think we did the right move. I think we've been credited by a lot of people as doing the right move, such as Colin Cowherd, because obviously he had one good season, and you can't everyone finds a diamond in the rough. For example, you may date one attractive woman in your life, and then the rest are not that hot. But
Dirk, of course, not talking from experience, but talking in
hypotheticalness.
Hypotheticalness.
But I think that you also have to. I mean, you look at Cousins, and you see a guy who, as we mentioned, has the consistency. This isn't paying $84 million to 4-game wonder boy Brock Osweiler.
No, absolutely not. I don't know why people think just because a quarterback hits free agency, there's something wrong with them. Okay, actually, I do know why they think that, because normally when a quarterback hits free agency, there's something wrong with them. But people don't get the fact that this is a rare occasion.
No, it's the best free agent.
This is different. This is the best free agent quarterback that has hit the open market since Drew Brees.
Okay, Drew Brees hit the market for a day, and there was really no chance of Drew Brees leading.
No, not this year. I'm talking about Drew Brees.
No, I count Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was the last good quarterback to hit the market.
Okay, that's probably fair. But
so I think what you have to go spend on it when you're one piece away from the Super Bowl. clearly you didn't get there last year, obviously, as we've ranted about. So you need to upgrade, and that's what the Vikings have done. I think Cousins is going to thrive with the receivers. He had dinner with Rudolph and Thielen's families the other night. They're all excited for him to come. He's excited to be in the locker room. He's doing the Tom Brady diet. He signed for less money than the Jets would have offered him. I mean, he sounds like a guy who wants to win now, and he's committed to winning now, because if he had wanted just the money, he would have gone to the Jets. That would have been warning sign number one if he had gone to the Jets for the Jets, because he would have been taking the money over the best roster in the NFL that he could have gone to that doesn't have a great quarterback. 3, the Case Keenum versus Kirk Cousins argument is one that I think that anyone who is arguing Case Keenum is, I'm sorry, how do I say this? A dumb, you fill in the blank.
A dingbat. A complete dingbat.
For example,
I don't see the merit in this point at all.
I mean, one of Nate Burleson, who is an idiot.
Nate Burleson, I used to be okay with him because he'd say some nice things about the Vikings, but I'm now convinced, if you ever heard of the show Good Morning Football, I'm convinced they just say whatever they feel like saying. There's no base in fact. They just get feelings and they just talk about it. And yet somehow these videos are popping up all over my stream, and I'm so sick of it. I do not want to watch them, and yet somehow I end up watching them, and I just get more angry.
Nate Burleson is an idiot. He was an average wide receiver in the NFL, and he's below average announcer. I didn't think he could get any worse. Anyway, Nate Burleson talks about Case Keenum as like, oh, the Vikings has something special. And then the other guy who rides the Eagles bandwagon. I was thinking of another word, but that is not appropriate for this podcast. Eagles bandwagon was just like, yeah, if I was a Vikings fan, I'd want Keenum. They had something special. Well, here's the problem. Number one, Case Keenum has lost his offensive coordinator, who I contribute. I mean, when you have one good season in your 5 good years, you have to contribute that to Case Keenum. It's like how Jared Goff sucked under Jeff Fisher, and then he all of a sudden got Sean McVay, and Jared Goff was a Pro Bowl quarterback. It's exactly like that.
I'm still not sold on Jared Goff, but that's neither here nor there.
The offensive coordinator influenced him. 2, you had a tremendous defense, and then whenever you have to talk about Kirk Cousins not winning a playoff game, which is true, and he has only made the playoffs 1 or 2 times to the max, you have to look at the division he's faced over the years. Cowboys have been solid off and on the past few years with Romo and Dak Prescott.
And then this year, the Eagles just came out of nowhere, and they just destroyed them.
And the Redskins have no defense. I don't get what people don't see about this.
Especially this year.
Especially this year. This entire talk this whole season about team football, and that's why Case Keenum could thrive, because it was team football. And now all of a sudden, how do I say this? Oh my gosh. Anyway, all of a sudden, it's just like, oh, we should fault Kirk Cousins. First off, Kirk Cousins' defense is ranked no higher than 20th in the league over the past 3 seasons. In fact, the year he made the playoffs, he was at 27. The year he threw for nearly 5,000 yards, 2016, it was also at about 27.
And that's a good point, Dirk. The 5,000-yard club is a very exclusive club, and Kirk Cousins was no more than 100 yards away from joining that very elite club. And he probably will not do it with the Vikings just because of how solid our defense is, and he's not going to have to throw his way to win games all the time, though he might have to, and it'll be nice to have someone who's actually capable of doing that. But he now has a good defense, so I think he might still continue to be a 4,000-yard passer, but it's going to limit his ability to throw for 5,000 yards. But It takes a very skilled quarterback to be able to throw for near 5,000 yards. I don't know why people think that some schmo can just throw for 5,000 yards. I mean, Case Keenum played all but 2 games this year. He's there for 3,500 yards. It is not easy to throw for over 4,000 yards.
Kirk Cousins doesn't get blamed for not winning games himself. He doesn't get blamed for the bad defense. It's kind of like how Aaron Rodgers but when it's Aaron Rodgers, the defense is the blame and not him. Now, to be fair, the Packers do have a bad defense. That is true. Aaron Rodgers is better than Kirk Cousins. Nobody is arguing that.
I'm arguing that.
Okay, Nathan is arguing that. But I mean, at the same time, Kirk Cousins lost his only playoff game to Aaron Rodgers when the Packers still had a decent middle-of-the-way defense. I mean, are we really faulted? If Aaron Rodgers is really a top 5 great quarterback of all time, I think he's in the top 10, not top 5, but still very good. Are we really going to fault Kirk Cousins for losing to Aaron Rodgers when pretty much any other team that does not have a defense does lose to him in the playoffs?
And Dirk, you know what I hate about Kirk Cousins and why we shouldn't have signed him?
Why?
He's led no game-winning drives. I mean, he just chokes in the 4th quarter. Do you know what place he is among quarterbacks in the 4th quarter since 2015?
What?
3rd. Wait, third? Oh, that just destroys my argument.
Oh, Nathan is playing
Never mind. He's great in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right, Dirk and all you haters out there. Kirk Cousins has led 11 game-winning drives since 2015 behind only Derek Carr with 12.
Wait, Derek Carr?
Derek Carr with 12.
Okay. That's
and you know who this one is.
Aaron Rodgers.
No.
Drew Brees.
No.
Tom Brady.
Come on, Dirk.
Tom Brady.
Think about last year.
Case Keenum.
Think about last year. Not last year. Or sorry, 2016. Think about 2016.
Tom Brady.
No.
Matt Ryan.
No. You're right with Matt.
Why is it not Tom Brady?
Think about 2016. What happened in 2016?
Sam Bradford.
No. Who was another quarterback?
Oh, not that guy. Fudge that guy. Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford with 15 because in one season he led a game-winning drive in every game that they won. Oh my gosh, seriously, that season was insane, and so obviously Matthew Stafford tops that list. But, Kirk Cousins has definitely not had his share of game-winning drives. And there's so many other intangibles that are good about Kirk Cousins, and people say about his mobility is not good, but
his mobility is decent. I've watched plays of his mobility.
His mobility is good, and over the last few years, he's gotten better at getting out of the pocket. He's rushed for 13 rushing touchdowns in the past 3 years, so there's something, Dirk.
Yep.
Not to mention all his passing touchdowns, and he's one of 5 people to pass for over 4,000 yards in the past 3 seasons. Dirk, do you know who the other 5 people are? Sorry, 4 people are.
Pass for what?
Pass for over 4,000 yards in the past 3 seasons.
Drew Brees.
Okay.
Tom Brady.
Nope.
Oh, really? Tom Brady is on.
Don't you remember he got suspended for 4 games?
Oh, yeah. Good job. In the past 3 seasons, you said?
Past 3 seasons. Drew Brees is
Cousins,
1.
Brees.
No. Cousins is 1.
Rodgers can't be because Rodgers is hurt. Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
Carson. No. Derek Carr?
Nope.
Okay.
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers.
Matthew Stafford.
Oh, Phillip
Pretty
Rivers.
good company if you ask me, Dirk.
Yeah. So Nathan, I think last comment here on Kirk Cousins, and we need to move on. He has a better deep ball than Case Keenum. He can also throw short, and he can also spread it to our running backs, Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray. And he's got a good leadership and a good vibe. And he seems also in the locker room. He's not focused. He's focused on the team more than he's focused on himself, which I think will be great to the locker room. All in all, I give us an A.
Here are my 3 takeaways that are like the most important improvements that we get with Kirk Cousins. 1, quick release and knowledge of what's going on in the field. Was Case Keenum generally pretty knowledgeable on what was happening in the game? Yes. Could he have been better? Yes. And Kirk Cousins has an insane quick release. Seriously,
very.
He makes his checks so fast. And Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer both said that those were qualities that they liked in him. Yeah. And I think they're going to get even more of it here. 2, Kirk Cousins is just he's mobile in I think a better way than Case Keenum. Case Keenum's mobility helped us a lot, but I think Kirk Cousins maybe be able to step it up to the next level. And my 3rd thing about Kirk Cousins is I just think that he is going to be a fresh face that we really need after that loss, and it's going to make people forget about what happened last year.
Very, very true. But now we move on from our Kirk Cousins new franchise quarterback to the guy who sacks quarterbacks. Sheldon Richardson signing a 1-year contract for about $7 million, I will believe, with the Vikings. He played mostly for the Seahawks last year, but has been a Jets player before, made a couple Pro Bowls. Not at that level he used to be, I will admit. But he still has potential. I think, personally, he's still an upgrade over Tom Johnson. I think he's a slightly better pass rusher.
Oh, without a doubt.
He's bigger in the run game as well, and I think he'll do well with Linval. So I like the signing, especially since it's a 1-year deal, and if he isn't good, we can just release him and not bring him back.
And one of the things that Sheldon Richardson brings to us is he now adds another guy that that teams really would need to have a double team on. Because for the past few years, it's just been Linval Joseph has been double teamed, and then whoever the other guy, Tom Johnson. Easy target for anyone. He was fine. Tom Johnson did okay last season, but Sheldon Richardson is a huge improvement. I think you're going to see Linval's stats go up. I think you're going to see Sheldon Richardson's stats go up. They will work very, very well together this year. Our front 7 is going to be scary.
Yeah, signing another D tackle or keeping Johnson to keep that formidable front 4 together was key, and they've done that by slightly upgrading, I think, here with Sheldon Richardson. As again, I don't think Richardson's at the Pro Bowl level he used to be, but I think he's an upgrade over Tom Johnson and play very well into that spot.
Dirk, I'm getting very encouraged by what I'm hearing from both Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer about our young defensive tackles, because Rick Spielman basically said that they are done looking for decent defensive tackles. They're not going to make no attempt to sign Tom Johnson and no attempt to sign Shamar Stephen, which means that they have, they might look into Shamar Stephen. I'm not ruling it out yet, but they have extreme confidence in Jaleel Johnson, Stephen Weatherly, and Tayshawn Bauer, and possibly a guy that they draft this year. And so I like what I'm hearing there. I think that especially Jaleel Johnson has tremendous potential to be a great interior defensive lineman, and I think that he could be definitely part of a good rotation next year.
Very, very true. So anyway, those are the two big free agent signings. I'd say we're doing well in the offseason, better than our other divisional opponents. I'd say the only one doing close to what we're doing, I'd say the Bears right now are doing slightly close. They kept Kendall Fuller.
I mean, without a doubt.
They re-signed Prince Amukamara. They got a number one receiver in Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel. They got two good, solid wide receivers for a wide receiving core that was like a bunch of nobodies last year to help Mitchell Trubisky. The only bad move they made was Trey Burton, because Trey Burton should not be a top 5 paid tight end in the National Football League.
I'll give him this. Trey Burton definitely has potential. And maybe that was what they had to pay him to land him. But I think he's going to be a second-tier tight end at most. I mean, he had a good year last year. He threw that one big play, and so he got paid. So give him credit for that. Probably not a great signing on Detroit's part, but they needed a tight end, and they knew, or on the Bears' part, Chicago's part, but they needed a tight end, and they knew that he could be a tight end. And so he at least has shown that he can do it. But I mean, for a guy who is, I don't even think caught for a total of 1,000 passing yards yet, I don't think he would be worth that money. But you got to do what you got to do. But the Vikings have signed 2 top 10 free agents so far, and so this is a very good year for the Vikings in free agency. I mean, you look at last year, we made some solid moves. Latavius Murray, good player for us this year, and he obviously is a good locker room guy. He took that contract restructure like a man, and he's going to help us out in the cap a little bit, and that's very helpful. And last year we also got Riley Reiff, who turned out to be a fantastic left tackle, arguably the second best left tackle signing of last season, probably after Andrew Whitworth, who is just amazing.
Yeah.
But we can't pay money for everybody.
No.
And so we got a little bit cheaper deal with Riley Reiff, though. We definitely did still pay him a good amount. And Mike Rimmers, we'll see where he goes. I think if he's at right tackle next season, I think we might see a little bit more struggle from him, which is why I'm really pushing and hoping that we get a tackle in the draft. But it's looking like a really strong guard class, so I could see us going in that direction as well.
Yeah, I think we'll go offensive line that first round of the draft, but we'll talk about that more on a future episode, more around closer to the draft time. So also I think, you do have other moves in the division. The Lions signed LeGarrette Blount. Decent move. I think that's the best running back they've had in years. He's a power back. Also helps because I don't know if Philadelphia... I was more fearful of Ajayi and Blunt than I am of Ajayi and Clement.
Yeah, that's
still
for sure.
Good backs, but I think that they're there. And then let's talk about the Packers for a second, because the Packers have had an offseason. I don't know where to go. I think they signed Muhammad Wilkerson to a 1-year contract. I view Wilkerson like I view Sheldon Richardson, kind of like a good player, but older, not as good as they used to be. And also at the same time, Wilkerson. Their defensive line was actually the better part of their defense with Mike Daniels and Kenny Clark. Yeah. They didn't really need a D-lineman. They got screwed off of the Richard Sherman deal because Richard Sherman is now a 49er. They got screwed out of getting Kendall Fuller. They didn't go after Trumaine Johnson, who signed with the Jets. I don't get why they didn't go after Trumaine Johnson. He was the best corner available, besides possibly Sherman, and they needed one. I'm happy they didn't. I'm happy they're still being stupid.
They're having a terrible offseason, if you ask me. I don't know any of the moves they're thinking, but of course, all the Packers fans, they don't know how to process making signings in free agency because it hasn't happened in years, with the exception of Martellus Bennett last year when they were all like, oh, Martellus Bennett, this is going to be the best offense in the NFL. Yeah, adding a crappy second-tier tight end is going to make you the best offense in the NFL, without a doubt.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Packers
they do.
Oh my gosh,
they do have a better tight end now in Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham is better than Martellus Bennett.
He's shown consistent production over all of the last years. Few things. He's getting old. He's no longer the middle of the field target that he was, and so now that the Packers don't have Jordy Nelson, we'll see where he goes with that. I would say they probably are going to draft a wide receiver, though.
Yeah.
They need help on defense,
yeah,
too.
I would say they have Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb, solid 1-2 wide receiving core, but they don't really have a third guy open right now. They could always make one with Rodgers. They have a history of doing that, like Nelson. But I'd say if you're Green Bay, right now your number one corner is Kevin King, I believe. So, and
Which
then Devon
my
House
roommate says Kevin King was our best corner last year, and I say, well, that's just sad because he didn't
you were
play
dog shit.
Really meaningful games last year. But yeah, Kevin King, I guess he was a early second-round pick for them. So if you're a Packers fan, I guess you would be hoping that he takes a step forward this year. Personally, I do not think he will, nor do I hope that he will not. But the funniest thing I think of this offseason for the Packers was how the Bears just kind of dangle like Kyle Fuller, like, we're going to give him the transition tag and you can try to make an offer on him. And then they see like the Packers do make an offer on him, and like within an hour, they let the Packers fans get their hopes up. Oh, we're going to get the Bears, we're going to dog them so much. Within an hour, counteroffer, bang, he's off the table.
That has to be the Bears' first victory over the Packers in about a decade.
Oh, man.
But
yeah, seriously, but yeah, they...
why did Green Bay think Chicago was going to let their best corner go to a division rival? I mean, what was the logic there? You know, like, we don't try to buy people from Green Bay, and Green Bay doesn't try to buy people for us because we know we'll reject them. But, like, I don't get the...
I have to think that the Packers did not actually think they were going to get him. Like, why would the Bears let the Packers have their best cornerback? That just wouldn't have made sense.
It wouldn't have
And
made
the Bears
sense.
have plenty of money. I don't think they had as much as we did, which is kind of funny. Oh, we got to talk about...
Oh, the best quote from Colin Cowherd, and then we'll go into another awful contract this week. Best quote from Colin Cowherd, describing how the Vikings have now taken over the division was the smart signing of Kirk Cousins in the opinion of Mr. Cowherd. He's quickly turning into one of my favorite sports commentators.
For now, until he says something
idiot. He said, the Green Bay Packers have done what is unbelievable and I never thought would actually be possible. They have no money, and they have a terrible roster.
Yeah,
and also because we signed Kirk Cousins for $84 million guaranteed, Rodgers is going to have to demand like $130 million.
Yeah,
now.
They better get ready because Aaron Rodgers. Here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers, he has been screwed. Okay, he took a little bit of pay cut, so he hasn't been getting paid as much as he should be because he thought that would help them build a championship team. Except for the fact that they didn't. And so he has basically had to put the team on his back to take them to the playoffs year in and year out, and the team has been getting worse and worse, and we saw that culminated this year when he was out, and they were just awful. I don't think they have a good plan for his successor. I don't think he's going to be as good after the collarbone injury, and I definitely think that they're going to sign him to a monster contract that will be worth much over $30 million a year this offseason.
Yeah, we can only finally pray that the Packers have finally... what do you say? Crap the bed.
Yeah, I don't want to be too hopeful about it, but I definitely think that they are on the wrong
Because as we have
slide.
seen, they lose a quarterback, and then here comes someone else, and then they're good. So that's sadly how their franchise works.
I think Mike McCarthy might be on the downhill slope there if he can't put it together this season. Because, I mean, if you look at his track record, he got lucky one season with Aaron Rodgers. And he had a decent defense, and they all were good, and they got lucky, and they went and won a Super Bowl. And he's not really made any strides to improve his team since. So I just don't think he has that many more years left, but I could be wrong. And hopefully I am, especially if his teams continue to suck.
Out of the NFC now, we're winding down here. We just don't have a ton of other signings that there were big signings. I think the Giants are doing a good job. They look like they're possibly about to get Saquon Barkley in the draft now that Cleveland went with Carlos Hyde. Cleveland, the city that you thought was finally being smart in free agency, and then they turned into a bunch of idiots again.
What now, Dirk?
They signed Carlos Hyde. Their left tackle's gone. Tyrod Taylor's their starting quarterback. They had Jarvis Landry. I still
think that they had a pretty good offseason. When you're on the path that Cleveland has been on, they have not tried this trading game or whatever that they're doing yet. You got to try something new. I mean, literally they've won one game in the past 2 seasons. That's so sad.
True.
I mean, we play 16 games a season and you've won one?
Yeah.
I mean, that is so sad.
Yeah.
So hopefully something will be different for them this season. I mean, it would be nice to see the AFC actually be competitive again. Instead of just getting destroyed by the NFC every time we get to meet each other, because
or the Jacksonville Jaguars win the AFC. Holmes did last year. Also salty about that game.
Oh, Dirk. Okay, so...
Anyway, the worst contract of the offseason was maybe Jerick McKinnon is now a $35 million man to be the San Francisco 49ers premier running back when the 1 year he was our premier back, and yes, the offensive line had problems, but he still was awful.
Yeah, I don't get the signing. Makes no sense to me, but Kyle Shanahan is a very smart offensive guy, so maybe he sees something that I don't. I don't think so, but it's possible.
Very true, Nathan. Anything else you'd like to add so far in our
another big signing for the Vikings was their trade for Trevor Siemian.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at the Trevor Siemian trade on paper, you say, what were they thinking? This makes no sense. Why would they trade for a quarterback like Trevor Siemian? Well, here's the thing about Trevor Siemian. He's had decent years, and if you look at his number, they're similar to Case Keenum before he came to the Vikings, so maybe in the right situation, Trevor Siemian would actually be good. It's debatable. Hopefully we never find out because Kirk Cousins never gets hurt, but knowing the Vikings, it's good to have a very good insurance plan.
Yeah.
Another additional thing, Rick Spielman, as we know, likes to stockpile draft picks. He didn't have a 7th-round pick. Now he does. He got that this year. Granted, he gave away a 5th-round pick next year, but knowing Rick, I think he'll be able to get it back. He's very smart about trading down in the draft when the time is right and trading up when the time is also right. I praise Rick Spielman for doing a lot the last few years, and he's a big reason why our football team has gotten so good. And when people say things like, oh, this Kirk Cousins move is so bad, we're not going to retain any of our players, I say, hold on for a second. Rick Spielman, Rob Brzezinski, they're pretty smart guys, and I'm going to say that they probably have a plan for the future, how to retain their guys, how to structure contracts so that they don't conflict and have big years on big years. And I really believe that they're going to be able to get it done this offseason. We might have to get rid of one of them. And to be honest, probably wouldn't be the end of the world. You talk about a guy like Anthony Barr. Has he had good seasons? Yes. Is he replaceable? I think so, Dirk.
I think Danielle Hunter's most replaceable. I think you'd let go of Danielle.
Danielle Hunter, I could see that too. There's all of these guys would be good to keep, and I think we'll keep a majority of them. But if we lose one into the cracks, it's not that hard to replace one. I think a big omen of that will be this upcoming draft. Okay, so if we draft some guy on defense, it's like high up. It's like, oh, weird. I think it's an omen that maybe, say we draft a linebacker or say we draft a defensive end high up, it could be an omen that maybe one of their days is coming to the end. I don't think it's going to be Danielle Hunter because I think we're going to be able to get a fairly cheap deal with him because he's not been super productive since becoming a starter unless he has some monster. No, we're going to sign him before he has this next season. I think we'll be able to get a cheaper deal than you realize because he wants to stay in Minnesota, but I could be wrong. But I know that they really like Danielle Hunter, so I think there's a good chance that he's back. One thing quick to talk about in free agency is we still have not really addressed the cornerback position, and now we've lost Tremaine Brock, and so truly our corners right now are Trey Waynes, Xavier Rhodes, and then Mackenzie Alexander, and if we re-sign him, Terrence Newman, and if we re-sign him, Marcus Sherrills. Not an extremely deep cornerback group, and in terms of the slot corner position, it would be nice to see that maybe as a potential position that we would still address in free agency. We're hitting the second wave now as the first wave is done, and we got obviously our big 2 free agents. We got Sheldon Richardson. We got Kirk Cousins. Great signings by the Vikings, if you ask me. Dirk, is there a chance, and are there any names left in free agency that we might still be able to grab?
Yes, Nathan, there are a few here listed. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie was one of the better NFL nickel corners for the Giants last year. Didn't have an interception, had a good chunk of tackles and pass breakups. He'd be a good option, I think. I don't know about the money. I think Newman is most likely the re-sign, and then Sherrills. There is Robert McClain. People's passer ratings were in the 70s. That's not that great of a number when he was defending them. Also had 3 interceptions last year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's still looking for a new home. And then you could see an interesting thing here with Kenny Vaccaro. He's played corner before. He's mostly been a safety for the Saints. Saints clearly aren't bringing him back now that they've signed Panther safety Kirk Coleman. I could think that could be another guy. Looking at NFL draft prospects here, you have some corners that might fall. Carlton Davis from Auburn, who had a very good season last year with 46 tackles and 10 pass breakups. Isaiah Oliver of Colorado, J.R. Alexander of Louisville. You have your picks here. Offensive line-wise, too, because you do have to. I think you don't have to get one new offensive lineman, but I think we'd like to. You do have Jonathan Cooper, who's been filling in at times for the Cowboys over the past few years, as well as you could get Joe Berger back, although he's leaning towards retirement. Colts guard Jack Mewhart's very good, but he's played only 17 of the 32 games over the past 2 seasons, not very reliable. And then there is Josh Sidden, who was let go by the Bears, and Justin
Josh
Pugh.
Sidden, I think, signed with the Dolphins.
He did?
Yep.
Okay. And then Justin Pugh, who was a former guard for the New York Giants. He's still unsigned. He's very good. He's on the edge. He was their best lineman on the edge of Pro Bowl level. Big run stuffer. He can also pass block, too. Never mind, he signed with the Cardinals. And
Dirk's going to stop talking now because of that.
Cameron Fleming, though, he is still a free agent. He used to play right tackle for the Patriots if you want to move Remmers to guard.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Vikings might not be done in free agency. I mean, typically you would think you would sign more than 2 guys in free agency. I know we're going to sign at least a few of our players back. They've been taking it very slow, especially because of the Kirk Cousins contract, and they're still looking at the cap this year, next year, and how that's all going to work out. Obviously, Kirk Cousins got a very backloaded deal if you've had a chance to look at that. So our cap number didn't take a huge hit, so they still have a lot of money to play with this year. Well, I think it's about $20 million left after the Richardson deal. But that's still a good amount of money, so we have moves left to make, and I think it would be nice.
I think next is possibly a nickel corner, but also looking at re-signing and who you want to get restructure contracts, re-sign. And Spielman said the other day with Richardson, he's going to start evaluating prospects in the draft.
Yeah, so and another thing to look at, Andrew Sendejo is getting pretty old, so it would not be a surprise if they tried to get a safety in the draft to start developing. Our safety position was largely a disaster in the playoffs when Andrew Sendejo was out, so it would not be bad to look at either signing a veteran safety or drafting a safety to start developing behind Andrew Sendejo to possibly take over in a few years. That would be good to look at. And I think the draft is going to be a very, very exciting draft this year. It's going to be a huge draft for the Vikings. I think they need to address the offensive line first, and then they can start moving to maybe a potential replacement for third down running back Jerick McKinnon to help take the load off Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray and maybe add a little extra option in there. And there's so many different positions that they can look at drafting, but that's going to be another topic for another day. I think the Vikings are in very good shape. I think Kirk Cousins was an amazing signing and just very smart by management. And I really, truly hope that in the coming days, our Vikings fans can start to realize that we have a very smart front office, okay? They do not make fiscally irresponsible decisions. And they thought something in Kirk Cousins could potentially be the franchise quarterback. Dirk, a potential thing to note is both Kirk Cousins and Rick Spielman have been cited saying that they think this could be a lifetime deal for Kirk Cousins, that if he finds his fit here and all goes well, they hopefully will re-sign him before the end of his contract, and we might have a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years, Dirk.
That's something I don't know what that word is.
As Vikings fans, I mean, we have not had someone said the other day that we haven't had a franchise quarterback since the Wolves bought the franchise.
Yeah, Dante Culpepper. That was the last guy, and I don't think it was the Wolves owning it at that time.
And Dante Culpepper wasn't even our franchise quarterback for that long. So
no, he just played for like 5-6 seasons, and that was it.
So this could be the longest tenured quarterback for a long time, maybe even since Fran Tarkington. So,
might actually be, yeah.
So if everything goes right with Kirk Cousins and he becomes our franchise quarterback, without a doubt, a completely amazing signing, and really so far a very good offseason. Things are looking good for the season. Be looking for a draft version of Vikings Rant to be coming out in the coming weeks, Dirk.
Yes, we will analyze all possible Vikings draft picks, mostly the offensive line and the nickel position, corner position, as we have talked about. We might also talk about maybe other players as well we could draft. And I think we're going to go over our own, looking outside the Vikings, we'll look at the own top 10 of the draft and see who we think is going where out of all the top prospects. Barkley, Sam Darnold, Bradley Chubb. There was actually just a trade today. The Jets traded up to number 3. The Colts are now down to number 6. So already interesting moves are being made months ahead of the NFL's draft.
And so there might be a few extra little bits of content coming out for the next 2 or 3 weeks, but our next big podcast will be coming out not next weekend, not the weekend after that, but the weekend after that. We will analyze the Vikings' last moves in free agency, or last big moves in free agency, whatever happens.
Unless we do something totally incredible in that point, and then we're having an emergency podcast, and then we are...
That will be a very short one, unless something really out of the nowhere big happens. But plan on another podcast 3 weeks from now. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you take our opinions very lightly. But remember, this is your favorite team. It doesn't hurt to have some optimism once in a while and not just this feeling of doom and gloom and how are they going to screw us over next.
Plus, your bracket's screwed, so you might as well focus on the next Vikings season.
That's true. Excellent point, Dirk. Thank you for watching. This is Nathan Schulte.
I'm Dirk Ummenhauer.
And this has been Vikings Rant.